Hello, my name is Obo Awoke Obo, and it's always a pleasure welcoming you to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. This episode will be talking about what to do when you hit rock bottom. Things are very tough in Nigeria and in many parts of the third world. We hear stories about young Nigerians going out to places like Asia and preferring to die there or to commit suicide than be deported because they think that things are really very, very difficult in this place. And we have families who are struggling because the head of the house has lost his job for about 4 years now. He hasn't gotten a job, 4 or 5 years. Paying school fees is difficult, rent, and things are really very difficult. So what we're going to be talking about this morning is what to do when you hit rock bottom. I mean, I've hit rock bottom myself, several times. After I left Shell, things were really very difficult. There were times for a whole week, we didn't have food in the house, couldn't afford something to eat. There were times after I left that full employment that we needed to buy water to drink in the house. And we looked for 100 naira in the whole house, we couldn't find. So I hit rock bottom. So I'm going to be sharing some insights with you today on what you can do when you hit rock bottom. Now, in spite of the difficulties that we're facing in Nigeria and many parts of the Africa, I think I still want to encourage our young people to remain in the country and find a way to master their environment, because the trouble with traveling to Asia or to America or to other parts of the world, the trouble with running away is that when you live in those places, no matter how successful you are, something will always remind you that you are a second-class citizen. Something will always remind you about home. So it's important to actually master skills for dealing with adversity when things hit rock bottom. How do I know that it's actually better for you to remain here and try to deal with things? See, because I travel a lot and I've met many Africans, Nigerians, in parts of North America, in Canada, in parts of the United States, and in some parts of Asia, and they are living illegally there. And I tell you, living illegally in this land is not a joke. There's always a constant running from the police, running from immigration, living a life of hiding, and then you can't even get a job as a citizen. And the only thing you can do is menial jobs that pay far below minimum wage. And it's difficult. Now these people come back home, they speak Americana to us, but what they are going through there is not a joke. Now, how do you know when you have reached rock bottom? I tell you sincerely, if you hit rock bottom, you will know. And because I've worked with hundreds of people and spoken to thousands of people who hit rock bottom. Let me just share a few things, a few experiences of these people, when you hit rock bottom. For instance, your last bit of hope has just been snuffed out. You owing the bank and you're owing your friends, so much money. And you used to live in a very big house, but right now you've moved to a boys' quarter, and things have become so bad that people are beginning to suggest, why don't you go and see a prophet, or why don't you go for some deliverance or the other? Or maybe you're so broke that you actually contemplate swallowing your pride and going to beg your former driver in the office, for money, or your mechanic for money just to put food in the table for your people, for your family. Or maybe you're starving to death, and you go to your friend's house and you say, please give me food, I'm dying. But you see, your friend, instead of giving you food, he starts giving you advice. Meanwhile, you were the one that set up your friend to succeed, and what you're looking for now is food, but he's giving you advice. Or maybe you resign from your job to set up a business. Now you've run this business, or you've run out of funds, you've run out of ideas, and this business has drained everything and it's not moving you forward at all. Or maybe your younger brother's wife, this actually happened. She used to respect you a lot, when things were going on well. When you were coming in, he would say, Uncle Linus, is coming, and then they will open the door and give you all kinds of things and all that. But things, now you're falling to the rock bottom. And these days, when you are approaching the gates, your brother's wife is no longer calling you Uncle Linus. He calls you Uncle Lionel. In fact, he removes the S from the Linus, and he says, oh, this man is coming again. Or maybe you wake up and in the morning and there's nowhere to go again. Now, when all this have happened, you know that you have fallen to the rock bottom. But I tell you, that's not the end of your life. In the 70s in my village, I was a little boy, but when I started reading, I used to see this truck in my village, and those trucks made with wood, they had wooden body in those days. And then they usually write all these inscriptions, some of them really funny, some hilarious, but it represented the philosophy of the prevailing philosophy of those drivers. But I saw one that I've never forgotten. And at the back of that truck, they wrote, "The downfall of a man is not the end of his life." And I think that's wow, that's some serious philosophy, some serious truth coming from a truck driver of the 70s. So when you've hit rock bottom, what do? The first thing is to look toward where you have fallen. Look at where you have fallen. Try to find out, at what point did things begin to go wrong. It's very likely that you're still within the same pothole that you fell into, that thing that made you actually come back. So just look back, because if you don't know what made you fall, the likelihood of the same thing tripping you again and making you fall is very, very high. And then secondly, you need to devise an inspiration strategy. You need an inspiration strategy because it's very easy to slip into depression. And what you don't want to happen to you when you have fallen to the rock bottom is to enter depression, to go into depression. Because when you go into depression, depression sucks up all your energy. Depression clothes you with negative energy. Your outlook in life is gloom. You can't even see anything good again. You can't see your hopes. You can't see your dreams. You can't see the future again. So you really want to guard against depression. And what you need to do is make sure you devise an inspiration strategy. For me, every morning, very first thing in the morning, once I wake up, I spend at least 30 minutes, sometimes 1 hour of silence, just reflecting on the power of God, reflecting on His promises, reflecting on this beautiful earth, reflecting on the possibilities that life represents, reflecting on the powers of the human spirit, reflecting on the grace that God provides. And so you need that kind of inspiration strategy. And it's also important to make sure you surround yourself with people, positive people where you hear things that will encourage you and inspire you, not with people that constantly drag you down. Now, thirdly, I want you to realize that you have more options than you can ever imagine. Just the other day, somebody sent me an SMS and said, "Mr. Obu, you are the only hope I have in this situation." And I'm like, me, the only hope you have? See, when people tell you that, they actually imagine that they are, sort of making you feel good. They just morbidly think that they are praising you, or that they are raising you by letting you think that you are the only hope. But you see, how can someone tell you that you are the only hope that he has? I can't be the only hope you have. I can't, just one person. We are 7.1 billion people in the world. So you see, there are options. Not long ago, I was invited to speak in a village. That village had only one functional hotel. And then they put me in one room that was the best room that they could afford. And then when I entered that one room, there was one TV. And that one TV had only one channel. It has so many channels, but every time you press the remote button, it goes directly to that same one channel. And you see, many people are like that in life, just living one channel life. But see, when you hit rock bottom, I need you to understand that you have many options. So you need to sit down, take a piece of paper and a pencil, and then write down all the options. Write down at least 50 different things that you can do today. And then you'll be surprised that out of the 50 things you've written down that you can do today, that at least one action that you take today can actually lift you out of that rock bottom. Okay, this is where we're going to end this episode, and I hope to see you again in the very next episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise.